Vincent, congratulations on your new film, Surge of Power, Where There's Smoke.
Thank you.
And it's currently going through the film festival circuit right now. And before I get started on talking about your film, how are the reactions to your your new film, Surge of Power? Because this is, I want to say, is this the third film or the fourth? Fifth
Yes.
film. There we go. So how are the audience reactions so
Good. They're very good. I'm delighted. I've been to almost all of the audiences. I like to be there, with the audience and see and hear how the audiences are responding. You know, they're laughing in the right places, they're cheering, they're gasping, they're so it's working. Yeah. People are they seem like they're shocked at the right times. They're cheering at the right times. And also too, sometimes things that I didn't expect to be funny, sometimes people find funny. So it's interesting to hear people laugh at something that I didn't necessarily intend to be a joke, but they found amusing. Yeah.
You know what? That it is so delightful to watch it with the audiences. But
Yeah.
for this film, not for the whole franchise, but for this film, what where did the story actually came from for you? What actually inspired for the Where There's Smoke film?
Well, well, that's interesting. It's there's so many things going on at the same time. But what I felt was with the evolution of the Surge of Power films, we're at a place where um, I've introduced a number of characters and a number of new characters now. And it's really a team coming together. So I needed to create a situation that brought a number of heroes together. So it looks like Surge is forming a superhero team. And I wanted to do something a little bit different than when you're creating like your calamity, like what people are, what's the thrust of the film, right? What are the heroes trying to save for the day? Tried to do something a little different, and then also too with the villains, I find these days that people seem to really. It's not so much the heroes because like heroes, there's kind of an expected range of how heroes operate and their personalities, but villains, you have a wider landscape. And people seem to really like sympathetic villains, right? Someone who they can understand why they're doing the thing, and there's a sincere motivation, even though what they're doing might be something really awful that you might not do personally. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
And so I wanted to make sure that we had like a sympathetic villain that people could understand, appreciate, and still kind of in a sense kind of root for, like why this person is upset. Um, and um, and then also too, I needed a growth aspect. So you want to see your characters like change, right? That's such a common like literary technique, especially in storytelling and in the movie medium. So there's a bit of like a resurrection, a redemption arc that goes on with a character in the film. So I was playing around with just kind of, I guess, kind of stepping it up with some of the literary techniques that I was using in the film.
Well, obviously, you know, the consistency of your character Surge. Tell us which of the characters are actually new, and are there any previous characters from the previous films?
Oh, sure. Um, so is that a movie poster? So, Serge obviously has been around for since the beginning, and Nichelle Nichols' character Omen has been around since the beginning. She's been around for the last 20 years. And we do have a number of actors who've been playing recurring characters for some time now since our sequel. So Shannon Farnon, who was Wonder Woman in the Super Friends, she plays a recurring character, Mavis. Michael Gray, who was Billy Batson from the Shazam TV show, he's been playing a recurring character since our sequel. Joseph Culp, who played the original Doctor Doom in the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie, he's been around since the sequel. So some of these recurring characters, oh, and Robert Picardo from Star Trek Voyager, he's been around since the sequel as well. Um, So I've been trying to have some evolution with each of these characters, not just Surge, because Surge kind of does his thing. He's had some of his growth moments. It's a little less a focus on Surge's growth than some of the other characters. Like Shannon Farnon's character Mavis. It started off and she just seemed like this sort of AI program that helped Surge out, and she's really blossomed into kind of her own character that now, projects outside of the car and is running around on set with us and really interacting with the other heroes. Michael Gray's character too, he's kind of shows up as a mild-mannered reporter, but he's revealed to have powers as well. He's friends with Mavis and with Omen, and his character too is kind of stepping out. So I'm trying to develop all the characters as I go, not just, Surge's character. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yes.
Um, and for new characters, I've been planning these characters for quite some time. So I'm really excited that I get to introduce um, Falling Apple, who's the one in the green here. Kid Dynamo is in the orange and red, and Grok. Falling Apple, Kid Dynamo, and Grok are characters I've had in my mind for since after doing the sequel, and so just evolving the story to be able to introduce these characters and get them going was really exciting. And then also try and give each one of them a story too, and then have all these stories kind of weave together at the same time for a cohesive movie.
Well said. Well said. Now, tell us about your fascination with superheroes and comic books because watching this, I can tell you
Yeah,
really, really love, this superhero genre. So it must
yeah.
be a delight that you're speaking right now on the day that they just released the Superman trailer.
I haven't seen the trailer yet. So you had a chance to see the movie? The
I did.
the Where There's Smoke movie?
I did. Yes, I did. It'll
Oh,
be my
fantastic.
it'll be my second viewing of this film.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you, Gay. Appreciate that.
Hey, not a problem.
And did you like it? Did you laugh?
Yeah, it is delightful and it's funny and it's just one of those films that it brings in the inner child's imagination.
Mhm.
If I if if I was a child and imagining if I was a superhero, this is my
Yeah.
this is my imaginative world.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Did you cry?
Well,
Did you cry at any moment?
are you not to make any spoilers. I
Oh, okay.
didn't because I haven't watched the previous films to actually,
Okay.
develop that relationship, but I completely understand where you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So there are a couple of really dramatic moments in this film. And I really feel like as I've evolved, the first two feature films are comedies, and there's a bit of campiness, because I really wanted to bring that sort of, fun back to the superhero genre. So this is many years before Deadpool,
Mhm.
many years before DC's Shazam movies. So that sort of fun, campy, flavor. Um, but also too, as I've started to integrate and cross over with other creators who have their own characters and invite their characters to cross over into my world, I've had to kind of have a bit more of a serious world to like match up with their worlds. Um, and I feel like Where There's Smoke, I've kind of gotten to that place where, well, you've already seen the film. There's serious stuff going on. I mean, people
Mhm.
are getting hurt and killed, but there's also that lighthearted humor where there's the in jokes that are going on and the sort of meta references to the audience so they can appreciate there's a story happening here, but there's also fun going on. I feel like it's kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of where there's humor and they're doing goofy things, but there's also serious circumstances they're dealing with, right? But to answer your question about well, I guess, it started as a kid. I grew up watching the Super Friends, right? That was where the kind of my the love of superheroes came from, so it's really such a joy that Shannon Farnon, has been around with us, because she played Wonder Woman on the Super Friends for 10 years back when I was a kid. Maybe I should get some of those other voice actors to come in and be characters. Um, And from the Super Friends cartoon, it was I happened to buy. This is back in the day when comic books were like on a rack in the convenience store. So
Yeah.
the local 7-Eleven had their comic book rack, and then I would see some of the characters that I saw from the cartoons and started buying. And when I had money, when I was was doing newspaper routes and was making money, I would buy comic books, and so that's where that sort of the love of the superhero genre came from. And this too was back in the 70s when superhero TV shows started to come about. And so we had programs like, Linda Carter's Wonder Woman and Lou Ferrigno's Incredible Hulk, right? And the Shazam TV show and ISIS. So these programs started to, to be kind of flourishing. And so I was seeing live action as well as comic books as well as cartoons. And I think that's sort of what kind of not only like evoked the love of the genre, but it's kind of stuck with me obviously for all this time. And I'm still a fan of the genre.
Now, the most wonderful thing about this film is it's not really an Easter egg, but your casting process, because you bring in superheroes of old, you bring in Star Trek icons into your film. Tell us about these casting choices and meeting your heroes that I probably assume you love them watching them on screen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even with the very first movie, um, the stuff of heroes. Our big three at that time was Nichelle Nichols, Lou Ferrigno, and Noelle Neal. No, she was the Lois Lane from The Adventures of Superman. And when I made the first film, I really felt like Lou Ferrigno and Nichelle were shot like on two separate days. They're consecutive days, and I really felt like, I mean, not only was like it was just like so cool to be like, having these folk in my movie with me playing characters that I've watched on TV. Like you said, these are my heroes. And who didn't love at the time? Who didn't love the Incredible Hulk, right?
Mhm.
And Nichelle's portrayal of Uhura has been so endearing, and she herself, I think, beyond just the character Uhura, but she herself was such a gracious person. And I think people were drawn more to her as an individual than her Uhura character. Because she's just such a lovely lady, and she would go out to conventions and such, and her appearances on television as herself, right? Um, so it really was, it really felt like I'm making a movie. I'm making a real movie, and I've got these, like you said, like these TV icons, like sitting here with me in the room, acting with me. It really was quite a delight.
Now, tell us about the history of Serge, his personal evolution through these five films. Because one of the things that you don't see a lot on screen is being a gay superhero, and you wanted to get
Mhm.
into a little bit of backstory about with Serge in this film.
Yeah. So, with the first film, like I said, not only did I want to bring in the comedy aspects of the film, but I obviously wanted Surge to be an openly gay superhero because that was not represented yet in the genre. So at least even though Deadpool kind of came in as like kind of overtaken the landscape with the humor part of it, at least I'm still cinema's first out gay superhero. Um, and I wanted it to be um, kind of the same as any other hero, um, that's just an aspect of his character, right? It's not a focal point of the film. And you saw Where There's Smoke, so you can see like there's part of this is exploring a little backstory on Surge. So with the first film was a really Surge getting his powers and getting his sea legs on, and the audience being introduced to him as a hero, like just introduced to the character. So goofy comic book nerd, and he has this classic freak accident that gives him his powers. That was sort of the starting point. Um, And the aspect of the character being gay was just happened to be there, right? There wasn't like a coming out story. It was not like a HIV story. It wasn't like it wasn't like those like tropes. It was just this is just
Mhm.
part of his character. He hangs out with his friends and reads comics and such. I wanted that to be in the film, but not be like, be what the film is about. And so certainly his damsel in distress was a guy, in the first film. So that was just sort of like laying the foundation. But during the films, we then expand a little bit more. Like, he's so focused on being a superhero that Mavis is encouraging to have a little bit more of a personal life. So we see Surge in the sequel, trying to do that, trying to balance personal life and, superhero life. And he even has a date night. And then, as you notice with this film, what I tried to explore is I wanted to get a little deeper since I feel like I laid the foundation and the characters are being introduced and they're growing, but I felt like I wanted to go a little bit deeper into, Surge and his motivation for being a hero. And we've seen this so many times with superheroes, right? There has to be some traumatic event, with Spider-Man, right? Peter Parker's Uncle Ben died. With Batman, right? He was 8-year-old kid and watched his parents be
Mhm.
gunned down. That's what caused the transformation to lead him into being Batman. Or even Superman, his entire planet blew up, right? Or the Flash that was brought up more recently, like his the trauma with his mother. So I wanted to go a bit deeper, and I noticed that with in the first film, there's references to Surge's father. He has a chat on the phone with his father, but there was never any mention of his mother. So I thought that's an avenue that I could take, was to like delve into that without disrupting the continuity that I'd already created. It was something that hadn't been explored. So I did want to go deeper into like give a stronger motivation of like what really motivates Surge. So, and that's where when Surge starts to explain this and we go into the flashback, um, the guest superhero in this is the Smoke, and he asks him, "Hey, you told me how you got your powers. How did you become a hero?" So the Smoke's not asking about your freak accident, how you got your superpowers. He's asking, like, what about you and your personality, right?
Mm.
What's motivating you, right? So by the nature of the story, he's teaming up with the Smoke, and the Smoke is kind of forcing him to be more self-reflective and to open up, and that's where the audience gets to experience what is that deeper motivation.
Wow, that and I love the fact that you did this is a long storyline because this is actually a franchise for you. And I want to say it's been what 20 years
Yes,
with this franchise. And 20 years is a long time to stick to a franchise, and technology has changed so much. Can you tell us about all, the challenges and the changes for you personally through these 20 years as a filmmaker with the Search franchise?
sure. Um, so the first film was shot on film, 35 millimeter film, widescreen cinemascope. And the film process itself, I mean, I totally understand where George Lucas was coming from when he was really pushing the industry after the first, when he was kind of ramping up for the prequel trilogy. He enhanced the first three Star Wars films, right? A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, and is really pushing the industry to go digital. So with the first film, it was shot on film, and so it's a very laborious process to do visual effects, for example. And a film is very expensive, so we don't have one camera, and you're having to like have multiple people operate because someone has to be like the film handler and load the camera and stuff. Um, And then the film process of doing visual effects is you have to take that film negative, have have it scanned. Back then it was a very expensive process to scan to 4K, have it digitized for the visual effects designers to be able to do the design work, have it scanned back to film negative, have that film negative redeveloped, and then cut back into the film, right? When you're assembling your negative. So it was a much more complex process. So from from the sequel forward, we've been in the digital environment, and it's not only made filming easier and made editing easier, but also has made visual effects easier. And then visual effects technology itself is improving like every year. Are becoming available. Softwares are getting more sophisticated in things they do. I mean, think about the things you can do with your phone these days, right? You can take a picture and then like just push a button and it changes the background or takes you out of the film, or you can erase a whole person. So there's stuff you can do with your phone that you couldn't do 20 years ago on film in the film environment. Um, and also with digital, um, it's a bit easier. It's a bit easier to film. So I like to have three cameras going at the same time, even if I'm not necessarily going to use all three camera angles. But when I'm shooting, I'm typically shooting one particular shot that the camera's focusing on, but I like to have two other cameras going at the same time because they might capture something else, might capture another angle, and then I have like broader coverage. So the cinematography with the advances of technology has allowed me to like broaden it. So where some things with the first film might have been shot a little more, I don't want to, I'm going to use the word flat for a better term, where we have like more limited camera angles. Nowadays, I'm able to have more cameras going at the same time because the equipment is cheaper. We're not operating with film; it's all digital. And even with 4K cameras, I mean, like your cell phone now like shoots 4K, right? So the advances of technology has made filmmaking a lot easier. It's made it cheaper. I mean, we're still spending more money with the budgets, but it's enabling us to make bigger and broader and better films, right? And the same with the visual effects. Some of my designers have been with me for 15 years now, so they're not only is the technology getting better, but their skills are getting better too. So we have the advancement of technology, cheaper, and then even the designers themselves with better skills. So 20 years, I mean, it's such a difference. Like if you watch the movie now, if you watch Where There's Smoke compared to the stuff of Heroes, it's quite a wild difference. I think it's kind of the same when you look at Star Wars. I mean, let's take the first Star Wars film when you had like the Millennium Falcon and the TIE fighter battles. There's like two TIE fighters going around the Millennium Falcon, right? You have this like big battle going on. Um, and you look at like when they got to Return of the Jedi, and there's just like ships flying everywhere, right? Like the advancement that occurred just in those few years from A New Hope to Strikes Back to Return of the Jedi alone was like, right? You remember like there's just like
Yeah.
dozens of ships on screen. Or even in the big battle with at the end of the first Star Wars film, there's Luke is in his X-Wing fighter, and there's a few other X-Wings around, and you've got Darth Vader and two other TIE fighters with him. It was much more limited. And then now you see like I don't know, 60, 80 ships on screen. So similarly, when we shot the first film, it was just Surge and his villain, the Metal Master. The visual effects were more limited. The cinematography. I don't want to say it was limited. It was what it was at the time, right? But 20 years later, now we're able to do a lot more. Now I have a dozen characters, three villains, eight heroes, a few other folk, and they all have different powers, and they're all running around on screen. So we're able to do a lot more, and it's much more complex, much more dynamic, much more colorful than 20 years ago.
Well said, well said. So that being said, we already know you are probably in the works for a sixth film.
Mhm.
Tell us what's more to come here.
So, um, so ever since the sequel, so like I said, the first movie, The Stuff of Heroes, is kind of like laying the landscape, and then in Revenge of the Sequel, I want, like I said, people like sympathetic villains, so I wanted to play up more on my villain, the Metal Master. So, like Surge has his kind of mentor in Omen, Nichelle Nichols' character. I wanted to give him kind of a mentor, who's played by Eric Roberts, his villain. But we also introduced a whole council of villains. So
Hmm.
all these folk, there's like 9 members of the council that are all actors who played Marvel characters in the past. So like Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk, Reb Brown, who played Captain America, Joseph Culp, who played Doctor Doom, all the other heroes from the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie. So he introduced the Council in the sequel, so that we have like more villains, right? Because you always want I've noticed in films like it's very common to have the hero needs to be outnumbered or outpowered, right? So the villains have to be more of them or more powerful. So we introduced the council, and we introduced these crystals that jokingly surgeons and folk refer to as selenium. And the council members have been there in the subsequent films, and you see a few members of the council running around in this film. Um, so what I'm heading towards is the council too has been like I've been trying to like sow the seeds, give the audience a little bit more about like who are these people? What are they? What is their relationship with Omen and her friends? Because they obviously know each other, right? There's some history, so there's like this old regime of Omen and Mavis and Michael Gray's character and a few others. They're called the Sentries. But then there's also their counterparts who are the bad guys, the council, and they have history. And so where I'm headed is now that Surge has kind of formed a superhero team in Where There's Smoke, as kind of Omen and Robert Picardo's version of Omen, just Omen shapeshifts as you've seen. Um, Tell Surge you can't handle the council on your own. You want to, but you could use some strength in numbers. So now that I feel like I've formed a team, now we're headed towards that confrontation where in the next adventure, which will be my last adventure as Surge. I'm going to step out of playing Surge after the next movie because time for some. So I've been doing it for 20 years. Time for me to step out. So this next adventure we're headed is to see where that culminates to. Now we have a superhero team that might be able to take on the council. We need to see like where is this going? Really bring out what is that history between Omen and her colleagues, the Sentries versus the council. What went wrong in the past that some folk became the good guys and some folk became the bad guys. And so I'm headed towards my Surge end game. You've seen
Mhm.
like the Avengers, right? End game,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
So that's where we're headed is the stuff I've been um, building since the first Surge of Power movie, since the Stuff of Heroes. This is going to culminate in the next adventure that will kind of be that confrontation, be that revelation, and wrap up the story that I've been building for over 20 years.
Well, it's quite an expectation. It's going to be bigger and better.
I'm trying. See what I can do. Yeah, we're headed in the right direction. I mean, it's working. I was really surprised. I am surprised. So, with the sequel, with Revenge of the Sequel, we won 4 awards during our film festival run. And another nice thing with my movies is like I don't just have the film festival audience track, but by the nature of my films, I also play at comic conventions and sci-fi conventions and fantasy conventions. So I have a convention track as well as the film festival track. So that's
Oh,
really nice. But Where There's Smoke, we're now at 17 awards
mm,
from film festivals. So I'm just blown away. So we've won, like best feature film, best fantasy feature, best action feature, best genre, um, best visual effect. We've won best visual effects at like 3 different film festivals. I mean, it's things that I didn't expect. Even one of the songs so I've had bands do custom songs at times for some of our movies. Even like there's a custom song in Where There's Smoke that even got an exceptional merit for original song. So I'm winning like all kinds of awards that I didn't expect. I mean, I definitely wanted a best visual effects award. I was really like hoping for that. So I'm delighted. But now to have like a few film festivals give us the best visual effects award is really exciting. So I'm doing something right. It's working. So yeah, and obviously we're still going in film festivals and in conventions with Where There's Smoke. But I have already started the next adventure. Um, in fact, we had some footage we already shot with Nichelle Nichols. That's been like edited and visual effects. So there's a like 3 minute kind of opening to the movie that's already done with Nichelle. And Michael Gray's character, um, Willie B, as I mentioned, well, you saw the movie. He
I
shows
did.
superpowers for the first time, but I promised him a costume for the next adventure, and we literally just had a costume fitting with him, in his outfit, and it was really kind of fun to not only put him in costume, but oh, what's my phone doing? Trying to show you a picture there, and um. we're ramping up for doing a shoot with him. So there's our little crew and putting him in his outfit. And he's
Oh,
just so
yeah.
happy to be in. Yeah, so we just did a costume fitting with him on Sunday. So he's getting his superhero costume, and we're ramping up to do a shoot with him to shoot some scenes in January. So we're already, on the go. So while I'm still doing the festival convention circuit with Where There's Smoke, we're starting to work on the next adventure.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. And Vincent, I just like any other interview, and you have a 20-year relationship with Nichelle, and it is so hard to say goodbye to such a wonderful actress that everyone loves. Can you tell us about working with her for such a long time on this project? And
Oh, sure. Well, she came on board for the stuff of heroes, um, because she saw what we were trying to do to introduce a gay superhero because of her path. I didn't even know this at the time that that's why she came on board. It wasn't until we had the theatrical premiere of the stuff of heroes that someone was interviewing her, and I heard her saying this that someone was asking her about herself. So, she was pretty iconic being at that time perceived as the first Black woman in a position of power, being on the bridge of the Enterprise. And so she appreciated, in fact, you probably know her story, that she was contemplating leaving the show because she
yeah,
felt like Uhura wasn't doing enough. And Gene Roddenberry, oh, actually, no, it was Martin Luther King who she ran into at an event. And she had mentioned that. He says, "You can't do that." And she says, "What?" He says, "You have to stay there." He says, "You don't know how important you are." And he explained to her the importance of her character. And so she took a shine to what we were trying to do. Um, and that was part of why she came on board. I didn't realize that until like, a couple of years later. Um, so I was really delighted. And she was so gracious, Gig. When the first time we shot with her, when it was time to have a break and, sit down and have a meal, she sat down with the cast and crew. She was sat down at the table with the crew and eating lunch. And I thought that that was just such an amazing gesture and she just did it. It wasn't like she came out and did this grand thing like I'm sitting with you folks. She just did it. And I've had other actors who, they want to be in a private room themselves or they want a private meal. They're, and just that ingratiation to the cast and crew was really meaningful, not only to them, but to me. Oh, so certainly we wanted to invite her back. And she came back again and again. And obviously, with her health issues, we had to plan ahead, which I did. And we shot. I had to try and think ahead and think of what I needed her character to do. And so we shot enough with her that even though she passed, as you see, we did, I think, a really nice kind of send up and tribute to her in Where There's Smoke. But we have enough footage that she'll be in the next adventure with us. So um, it's really an honor to me, and it's really heartwarming to me to have someone of her, stature to be a part of the film, to like it enough to keep coming back, and to also, have her presence. She's in all the Surge of Power films, and she'll be in the next one too. So just a delight, um, and I hope that I'm honoring her well, to
mhm.
audiences that see her and like her and adore her. That I hope that no, she and her family, as well as audiences, are proud with what we're doing with her.
I can tell you got a little emotional talking about Nichelle because she meant a lot to you,
Oh, yeah.
and it's a long relationship that you developed with her.
Yeah, and there were times, there were times when she had dementia and it was getting worse and worse, but there were like those moments of lucidity that she would have and her just saying things like calling her like sweetheart and stuff and honey. And it was she wasn't being like kind of overtly encouraging to the film, but just by her returning in her presence, almost like a motherly figure. You know what I mean? And that's part of like what's kept me going is it's almost like that reassurance too.
Hmm.
Not just like fan reassurance or film festivals giving us awards kind of reassurance, but like within our environment of the cast and crew. So for her to return, or for Robert Picardo to return, or for Lou Ferrigno to return, right? That's just giving me added confidence and reassurance. It's like validating, the work that we're doing. But you're right. She was, she's definitely missed amongst the crew. Um, but she's still a part of it, and all of us want to. The visual effects designers in particular, they're working really hard. They want to make sure she looks good. They want to make sure that she presents well. And like I said, that, she's been with us for so long. I mean, how can we not pay tribute to her?
Well said, well said. Well, Vincent, I've taken a lot of your time. Is
Oh, no problem.
Surge of Power where there's smoke? Is it what it you I understand it's still continuing on the film festival circuit. So where can we actually expect that audiences can actually keep on seeing this on the film festival circuit or the convention circuit
Okay.
in 2025?
Yep. So people can just go to our website, surgeofpower.org. And there's a news button. So right on our news page, latest news, we post the screenings of what's coming up. And also too, I noticed like some folk have been asking about this, so I'm probably going to be putting it up on Vimeo sometime soon so that people can sign in there. All the previous movies are up on Vimeo. That's like one platform where they're all available. The sequel and a couple of others, and we've re-released, the first film, The Stuff of Heroes. So they're starting to show up in other places like, Amazon, iTunes, and such. But Vimeo is at least one place where all of them are. And I'm probably going to put it up on Vimeo because um, we're playing in these, isolated locations at film festivals and conventions, but audience members, some of our fans are not in those areas and have been wanting to see it. So, we've also talked about maybe doing a couple of virtual screenings.
Hmm.
So maybe having a couple of cast members, introduce the film with me and do a couple of virtual screenings so people from anywhere can see them. And then, like I said, I'll probably put it up at some point soon on Vimeo so that people will be able to access it because, like I said, you know, um, you know, film festivals and conventions, they're that's they're geographic and limited. You kind of want that to some extent so that people will go to them.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm realizing there's a lot of people that can't get to them. So I do need to make sure that people are able to access the films.
Well, the world needs to see this, Vincent. So
Thank you. Yeah. So I'd say if people would just go to our website, surgeofpower.org, the news page shows the screenings that we schedule. Certainly, if we do virtual screenings, we'll post about them as well. And we're pretty active on social media too. We've got posts going on all the time on, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. I still can't bring myself to say X, but Twitter. And we've also talked about maybe starting up an account on Blue Sky. I don't know if people use Blue Sky too much, but I keep hearing about Blue Sky. And then also on our website, every page has a button that says "Watch our movies." So we do put on there like what platforms the movies are available on for streaming, and some of the first two features are available on DVD. And so we show some locations where people can find like DVDs and Blu-rays. So if people go to our website, they'll be able to see where our movies are and how they can access this.
well, this is a terrific movie, and I'm glad
Oh,
that
thank you.
you have all your movies accessible to everybody. But just to encourage everybody, go to these festivals, go to the conventions to
Yeah.
watch it because because comic book movies is meant to see on the big screen with an audience because it's the experience, and that's what we love about it.
I totally agree. I mean, that's why I enjoy going to movies just to kind of hear the audience react or even me reacting. And I love being in the audience. And this plays well. And I've been to several theaters and just seeing this, all these colorful superhero characters running around and their powers going is fun. And then, like you said, with the audience, like just hearing the audience members react to it, it's an experiential thing, and you don't get that, watching a streaming screen on your computer or on your TV at home.
Well said. Well, Vincent, thank you very much for speaking to us about Surge of Power, Where There's Smoke. I can't wait to do this again with you on your next film, your
Yeah.
sixth film, your personal final film as Surge, but the franchise has to continue. So
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Appreciate your
Thank
time.